What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of the Something About Everything podcast. This is a podcast where you learn a little something about everything. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb, and with me today are some of my good friends, Cooper, Marco, and Blake. Today's discussion may get a little controversial as we're going to talk about some of the recent current events that have been happening in the U.S. these past few weeks. Well, there's no time like the present, so Cooper, you want to take off for us, and let's go ahead and jump right in.
What are your guys' opinions on the riots and protests that are going on in the United States today?
I think the rioting is bullcrap, honestly. I think that people are just using it as a as a way to go out and get free stuff.
I think it's causing a lot of change. Like the good part of it, it's changing a lot of ways.
The rioting is changing it?
No. The protests are. Like, just the protests going worldwide in general, I think it's helping a lot. Instead of just one city.
Personally, I believe that the protests are founded on non-factual evidence. I mean, I've looked up the stats for the supposed racist police brutality in the nation, and it says that for every 10,000 people arrested, 4 black people are killed. Every 10,000 black people arrested, 4 black people are killed. Every 10,000 people arrested for white people, 5 white people are killed. So I just think if you were thinking they say they're protesting against systemic racism. If it was systemic, wouldn't you expect that statistic to be much higher?
Well, like at work today, one of the guys that we were helping said that his daughter works as a cop down in Oklahoma City, and they had a black guy in custody, and he died because I think he was like freaking whacked out of his mind, and he like had a heart attack. But then they said that was like due to police brutality and shit, and it's just so stupid.
I want to like kind of show my actual, like, my opinion isn't that there is no police brutality. I just don't think the police brutality is based out of racism. I think it's based more in lack of training, because you see this kind of stuff happening to white people and Latinos and Asians. It's not just black people is what I'm saying. I understand the Black Lives Matter protests, but I think that's where they keep making fun of the All Lives Matter. But I think that's a fair banner to fly under, because if you're saying only when it only matters when a black person is killed by police brutality, it doesn't matter when a white person or an Asian person or an African or a Native American is killed. That if you're saying that doesn't matter, I mean, I kind of disagree with you. But I'm not saying all police are bad. I think probably 95% of all cops are completely good, and they train and they try to do their best to protect and serve their communities, and they try and do their best to make the world a better place. But then there's that 5% out there that is ruining the image for the rest of the people.
Well, and like, there's the lack of training, and then there's also being in that situation and you not like knowing how to handle it because of lack of training. So then you're like stressing out and freaking out, and you don't know exactly what to do, and there's people shoving cameras in your face, and you're just like, what the hell am I supposed to do? So then you react differently than you normally would in like a well-trained situation.
Just as an instance of police brutality that didn't happen to a black person, a guy named Daniel Shaver, I believe, a couple years ago, he was in the Southwest somewhere, in Arizona, I believe, and he was in a hotel. Cops got called, and he was drunk. He was obviously drunk from the video. It circulated virally, because it was police brutality. 100%, because the officers are just giving him conflicting orders. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video, but the guy's in like shorts, really saggy shorts, totally drunk. You can tell. The officers are telling him, keep your hands up, but then put your hands behind your back, and keep your legs crossed, but then crawl towards me. And then whenever he tries to crawl towards them, they say, keep your legs crossed. Just totally conflicting orders while having a gun pointed at you. And he crawls towards them, trying to crawl, and then his shorts fall down a little bit, and he goes to reach to pull up his shorts just kind of instinctively, and they put about 10 rounds in him. And you see the entire video. None of those officers ever got charged. In fact, the officer who started shooting was actually allowed to come back. He was I think he was he had to resign, but he was allowed to come back on the police force in order to get his pension. And I didn't see a single riot. I saw some tweets about it, and it was a terrible thing, but I didn't see anywhere near the amount of outrage about this guy getting shot just in plain as day, you know.
I think the real fight about Black Lives Matter is that they're not getting charged. For example, the guy that killed George Floyd, he had a lot more things behind his name than just this instant. He had a lot more reports on him, and he never got suspended. Well, he did got probably got suspended, but he never got fired. That's the thing, is they're letting these cops go by with a lot of reasons. They're letting them go by with a lot, and they're not charging them like a normal person should be charged. It's they're getting special treatment just because they're a cop.
I totally agree with you on that. But the thing is, they're marching under the banner of Black Lives Matter. They're not saying we should be prosecuting police better. They're not saying resist all police brutality. They're saying defund the police. And you know what defunding the police is going to hurt most is minority neighborhoods who have statistically higher rates of crime than non-minority neighborhoods.
Okay, well, mostly on minority neighborhoods have a lower income, which a lot of people trust on selling drugs and drug sale. That's why the crime is so up. It's up there because the minority neighborhoods are just the income. If you see incomes are much lower than the white neighborhoods. For instance, Meade's a pretty good town. I mean, but the thing is, there's no low or isn't that low where people have to sell drugs.
I understand where you're coming. You're thinking that they over police them because they have to resort to crime to feed their family. But I think the issue is a deeper one other than police than just the police. I think in my opinion, from what I've seen on statistics, back in the 50s and 60s, when the minority, specifically the black family, was very conjoined. Like they had a mother and a father in the house, and everybody was working hard to be a good person in this world, which I'm not saying they're not today, but there's not the fatherless rate in households in the inner city, which are mostly minority neighborhoods, is 80% fatherless people. And I think if you compare this crime statistics to rates of fatherlessness, you can find that there is a very good correlation between those two statistics. And also, to your point, why? So, if the people are committing crimes, even if they're doing it to survive, should they still not be charged for that just because they're minorities?
The human is made to survive. As long as we have houses, we're always in survival mode. And if you have a family, you're gonna resort to anything you gotta do, violence or anything. That's the thing, and it's not that it's good, but it's a thing that people that they don't. They're always, even in school systems, they're put into not being. The thing is, mentally, they don't have the motivation to do something in their lives, so they go to drugs. They go to selling drugs. The thing is, the school. It's a lot of things more than just a neighborhood. It's schooling. It's just where they grow up. It's not a good place. It's very negative. You can't really get out of it with. It's unmotivated. It's you can't get motivated to get out of the hood. Is kind of what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're saying because like in the lower impoverished areas, it's all about who you're with. So it's a community based thing. So like out here, we're in a smaller like I'd say farming community city or town because we only have like 1,000 people. We don't have any of these lower impoverished areas, but in like inner city type, these people are going to resort to like selling drugs and committing crimes because that's who they're surrounded by. Like most children in those areas are going to wind up either in gangs or in some kind of criminal based group because that's who they're all surrounded by.
And like not only that, but people say let's stop the cartel, right? Let's go to that. If we want to stop the cartel, we have to have people stop buying because the cartel is a business. It's like Apple. If you stop buying Apple, that business is down. And the thing is, we come to America. That's where the biggest That's where everybody buys. So if you want to stop it, have your people stop buying at the same time, and then you'll stop the whole cartel thing. There won't be anything to sell for them. I mean, it's not going to be as big as it is right now. So the thing, it's an American issue and it's a Mexican issue in that problem too. So it's really hard because every issue has a two parts, just like the racism. The cops have a issue with it, and so do our minorities. For example, we scare the cops because our cartels. We give fear into people's eyes because our cartels, and I see that. We have a lot of violence in Mexico. But the thing is, I can tell you in Mexico, it's a lot of cartel and cartel crime. It's not much on civilians. And in black people, we're scared because they have a lot of gangs. And well, that's what we see. As long as and also we live in a small town, so we're not that educated on how it is in the big town or all these other cities. I think we have to go to schools and put black kids from other neighborhoods or put kids from other neighborhoods and put kids with rich kids and poor kids in one same school so we can learn about each other. And I think is when we grow up with each other, it's easier to understand.
I think with that, like what you were saying with the schooling and whatnot, I think that cities need to put in more effort and funding into a higher education program and feeding more money into that, so then the kids that don't have that opportunity are able to go, and then also feed more money into the lower income areas, because if they have them out, in the long run, it'll help out crime rates too, because then that gives them more opportunity to make more money, and it just makes problems go away slowly over time. It's not an easy fix, but I think that'll help out quite a bit if the cities actually make an effort to send in funding and give those people more opportunity to do more with their lives instead of resorting to committing crime and getting involved with the wrong crowd and stuff like that.
Money can go into sports. It can go into pretty much anywhere. It depends what department they're putting it into. The thing is, Florida and Detroit also, it's a lot different. The situations, the cultures, everything is a lot different. It's hard to compare two different cultures, if you understand what I'm saying. And it's also the personnel there. The teachers make a big difference how they act. Because if you have a teacher that's really unmotivating, and it just depends on a lot of things. It's just hard to compare that with other states because of culture wise and everything else.
I know, but what you can say is like you can't compare the cultures because they are different cultures, but $5,500 worth is just the culture, just the teachers. I don't think so. Per student, you know how much you could buy with $5,500 per student? That's a lot of money. And you see Detroit schools, they might be the nicest, but if their literacy rates are not going up, I mean, I don't think it's just misallocation of resources that can cause to that much money going down the drain. I'm not saying it's a black problem. I'm saying that throwing money at a problem doesn't solve it.
No, I don't think throwing money at a problem solves it. What I was meaning by that is if this gives more people an opportunity to go to school and get away from the negative influences that these people are around and grow up with, because one person can change your life. So like let's say some of these kids go to school and then meet like a really good teacher, and before like the funding, or if they get help or whatever, they couldn't go anywhere, or their parents couldn't afford to keep them in school or even send them to school. But if this comes in and then they're able to go and the teacher helps them and they're around a positive influence, that can positively change the outlook on their life and their decision making in the future.
I I don't believe that the government through public school systems should be the role models for our children. I don't think they should be the positive influences. If they can be a positive influence, I know I have had high school coaches, teachers that have been positive influences in my life. That's great. And it helps you become a better human, don't get me wrong, but it should be on the parents first to raise your kid right, to raise your kid with discipline, and to raise your kid with motivation to learn. Which also, I think, a lot of these Black Lives Matters protests are based on they think they're victims and they don't know any way out of it. And I think that's based on a what they have is it's called a locus of control. We learned about this in my management class. It means if you have an internal locus of control, it means I believe I can get out of this situation or I can get to the top without anybody else's help. I can do it independently, which I think that's kind of one of the forefronts of American philosophy, that you can do something as long as you work hard enough for it and you can get to the front. But an external locus of control, just like if you get a bad grade on a test, you say, "Oh man, that course was just really too hard for me. I couldn't have done anything more than what I did. I couldn't have worked harder. I couldn't have studied harder. I couldn't have done the test better." And so I think that's where they're getting their that's kind of where they're just becoming victims, and they're not looking for a way to not be victims.
I think I'm a minority, and I don't live in a big community, but I can tell you I've had a racism with cops too. Blake has seen it.
Yep, that was a weird time.
And he stopped me for. He said that there's a someone they got to call in for someone burning out a nursing home, and I told him, well, I came from that way because I dropped off my friend, and I'm like, do you need my license? And after that, he's like, no. I'm like, then why did you stop me? Then if you don't need, the thing is, I've been stopped 3 times by him, and none of those reasons. He had a valid reason to stop me. And the thing is, I think what is bad when we get stopped is we hesitate instead of letting the cops talk. Um, I've seen a lot of people film right away before anything starts. The thing is, I saw this tweet where they said, "Let follow the cops' rules, and you won't be dead." But the thing is, I think that it sounds bad because you shouldn't be in that spot. But the thing is, we're in that spot, and we have to go around things and just avoid stuff. Like if a cop tells you to put your hands in the bag, the one who's gonna end up getting in trouble is him, because he falsely got you arrested. But I think these people are just terrified, so they get in defensive mode, in survival mode, because that's how we all react. We're humans. It's a human thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the number one thing to do is just have cooperation. Because if you throw any person in that situation, they're not going to know what to do. And going training, I think that every single police department in the United States and probably across the whole world need to invest more in police training before they're hired. Because you can't expect a normal human being to go out there every single day, risk their life, and know what to do when something goes south. So, like, all you have to do is just cooperate. Their job is to make sure you're okay, make sure you're safe. And the reason why in some cases, yes, there is racism involved, but that's a slim percentage, and that's being exposed now, which is a good thing because we don't need that. But in reality, they're stopping you or checking on you just to make sure you're okay. And then whenever you give them a bad attitude or just give them a hard time, they're not going to be willing to cooperate with you. So if you cooperate with them, they're more likely to work with you. It's like a two-sided thing. If you are rude to them, it might turn out bad on you. But I think cooperation is key.
I agree with you, but like it's hard for them because they're raised to be defensive and to like already be terrified of them, so it's kind of hard for them to learn to adapt and to figure out how not to be afraid of them and how not to just like automatically want to film and like just be against them in the first place.
I agree with that. Like I understand that they're condition. Well, I wouldn't say condition, but they're told or to be afraid of police because of like the racial problems we've had in today's day and age and in the past, especially back then too. But even then, I'm not gonna say I understand because I've never had to deal with that. But I think after hopefully all this changes have happened with all the policing and like the racism and stuff like that. But honestly, like it's probably still gonna go on. But I think the police force needs to do a better job of reprimanding people for their like problems and like if their write-ups and stuff. Like if something happens, they need to be disciplined instead of just being brushed off.
Going back to your point earlier that you talked about how if you're rude to them or if they film you, then they're going to get defensive. I think that our cops should be bold enough to not be, I don't think if you film somebody, you should get a ticket instead of a warning, And I've seen stuff like that, videos on the internet. And to me, that's a lot of cops. Like a lot of cops, I believe, power trip. Not a lot, but some cops power trip. They see that they are the one with the gun pulling you over, and they have total authority over you while they have you pulled over, and so they think, I might as well exercise it. And I think our cops should totally. That's why our training comes in. That's also where I think there should be. Yeah, I think there should definitely be gigantic measures to reprimand police because I think that's the only way we're going to establish trust again in police. Because even I don't trust the police now. Like I used to think when I was a kid, I was like, oh, cops, they always want to do what's right for us. And now I realize, like, they're human. People make mistakes. But when you're a cop, a mistake can mean life or death. And whereas you're like a grocery store clerk, if you stock the shelf wrong, it's not going to do anything, which I can understand. You get paid, $8.25 at that job. I'm not saying cops get paid tremendous amounts, but you have to be able, if you're going to want to be a cop, like I hear this response all the time after a showing of police brutality goes viral. They're always like, well, you wouldn't be able to do what that officer did in his place. You'd probably shoot him too. And it's like, yeah, I didn't sign up to be a police officer. I didn't go through the training. I didn't sign up to put my life on the line, which that's why I have total respect. And I think that's why we should honor police officers. And I agree with a pay raise if they're doing the right thing. Maybe an incentive pay raise, like no complaints against you, you get an extra bonus. But I also think the complaint should be investigated. You should be reprimanded thoroughly.
I agree with the pay thing because in Kansas, depending where you're at, the starting pay for a police officer is $40,000, which it's not a super big amount of money, but to go out every day and put your life on the line for $40,000, I don't think that's worth it. But I think you have to have a degree to be able to even apply to be a police officer, because I feel like most people, going back on your power hungry, like the power trip, I think that all the bad people that are being exposed now are all of the power trip people, because they're in a uniform and they have the authority to take you out and arrest you and possibly get away with much worse. So I think if instead of the whole argument about defunding the police is completely stupid in my opinion, because if you get rid of the police, all hell is going to break loose. There's not going to be any first responders, like, because normally police are first responders. They're not like authoritarian figures, I guess. They're public servants. They're there for your service and to protect the public and the community. So if you take them out, who's going to be the first one there? So if police have more training, they have a degree, they go through extreme training, because like a normal person isn't going to be able to just go out every day and then let's say pull someone over, they pull out a gun. What if you swap positions with them? What the hell are you going to do? Nothing. You'll probably pull the trigger too, because what are you going to do? No one knows. So if you go through like a super long training course and it actually focuses, and the police departments actually put more money in and looking into better employees, then I think that'll help out a lot, because like just having a degree and going through extreme training I think that'll help out more than defunding the police, because if you get rid of the police, then all hell's going to break loose.
I think we should have different departments in the police force. For example, we should have different departments handling certain situations. Because if you think about it, there's so many laws that a police has to remember. If we decrease the laws that they have to remember and just put a certain portion of laws that they have to just memorize, it would be a lot easier for them to notice what's bad and what's good. For example, I think we should have just like highway patrols, just them on the highway. They don't go for cause or violence. We have violent police that go for violence, for anything that's violence, not just big things. Like SWAT goes for big things, but we should have one that's for anything that includes gang related or just any kind of violence in general. And then we should have police that for suicide rate. The thing is, when someone's suicidal, I don't know why they call it cops. Because honestly, psychologists would probably get that person out before the cops do. Because I was reading that. I was like, because if you think about it, if I mean, the only problem with the suicidal thing is the guy might have a gun. but the psychologist can probably be trained too. So it'd be a lot better if you take a psychologist to handle a person that's suicidal.
I think that's true, but sometimes I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a thing called suicide by cop. So in my courses, we've learned about how these people will call in the police saying that something will happen if they don't show up. So then when the cops get there, these people act out to get shot. I watched a video once because it's okay. So people need to understand that police act depending on their policies in their department. So in this video that I watched, this guy wanted to commit suicide by police officer because he wanted to die, but he didn't want to do it himself. So in the video, he called the cops, said that he had a gun and was going to do something to someone, but in reality, he just wanted to be shot. So when the cop got there, that guy came at him and was very well trained and understood what was going on. So instead of shooting him, he backed off and he took the guy down, arrested him, and then in the next week or so, he ended up getting in trouble because he didn't follow department policy. And in the policy is if I don't know where this is at. So in the policy it said that if someone acts police officer with lethal force, they have the duty to shoot them, basically. So I think that police policies also have a play and a role in all these problems too, because they resort to lethal force. But in also a way, I understand because you're putting your officers at risk of injury or even death.
I think it would be like this psychologist would be a cop, but the thing is they would have to study in psychology. You would still have the training as a cop too. It's just you had to take an extra class. So it's kind of the same instincts, but they're not straight up psychologists. They're just psychologists, just like police psychologists. They have a training of a police too.
No, I agree. I mean, I could see that happening. I think for that to happen, defunding wouldn't help that cause at all. Because to get these type of people in, because I'm sure you'll have those types of people in certain police forces and stuff like that. Because I know in the FBI and like the higher up agencies, they'll have like negotiators and stuff like that. But I think for a local or police department, I think that they have to have more funding and more hire or to employ these type of people, because like the defunding isn't going to help that cause. And I agree with you. I think that having someone there who understands the situation would de-escalate it a lot. But also in some cases, I don't think that calling in a negotiator is going to be the best bet.
Do you think that defunding is just a power move? Like I think it could be used as I think defunding could be a temporary power move for the government. Kind of showing police departments either do your job or you will get defunded.
I don't think that the defunding is a government thing, because I think that the police department, they don't get funded by the government. I mean, they might in some cases, but I think most of it comes from city taxes. If I'm correct, I'm not too for sure, but I think that people are saying defund the police because they're outraged, and I understand, but defunding the police isn't going to help the cause. And I don't think it's a political thing, because they know that if they defund the police, that all hell's going to break loose and chaos is going to come out of this. I think that I saw this thing on Instagram where this girl was talking about how defunding the police is the worst possible thing that they could have said, but what they're meaning is something else. So like their meaning of defund the police is like basically just get rid of most of the money funded to all the bad cops. So what they're actually meaning is, like what I said earlier, is they have more training and all this other stuff like that.
Okay, even if the police are defunded by the government, but do you think it could be used as a power move to kind of show to kind of um just give a department a just to kind of show discipline.
I get what you're saying. You're saying defund it as an incentive for your cops to do better, for you to take up more was aggressive, like to be able to, God dang, I can't remember the word for it. Prosecute your cops if they do something wrong, or at least discipline them when they do something wrong. I understand where you're coming from, but the way it's being toted in the same sentence as defund the police or abolish the police. You see those same signs walking through the street. You see articles written about, do we want to defund the police? Do we want to abolish the police? And I think that's where the misinterpretation is coming from, if that is a misinterpretation. But and also, if what you're saying is to weed out the bad cops, I think what it should be then is to defund bad policing, or that's a better slogan if you want to cover what you're saying. If you say defund police, it's implied you want to defund all of the police, not just the bad ones.
I think all the sayings and all the protests are kind of it's what's catchy. It's what hits, because the thing is, if you want something to grab on, you have to use some catchy words, and it might not. We don't honestly know what it means because everybody has a different opinion on what it means. Uh, I think what really matters is the one that defunds. It's their opinion is the one that matters. If what they believe, if they, but I think is they should be defunded in the way I said it, just for temporary discipline, or just to kind of show that if you don't get your stuff together, you will be defunded. And a lot of police forces might actually have a motive to do something about all their prosecutions.
I know I haven't talked in a while, but I'm gonna kind of segue back to what you were saying, Cooper, about like honoring the police and stuff. Like I saw something on Twitter that had like a picture of Nancy Pelosi giving a folded flag to George Floyd's family, and like I don't know, that just kind of pissed me off, because like those are meant for like first responders and military and all those people who like put their life on the line and like earned that flag. And like George Floyd was a criminal. He had a record, and I just because something bad happened to him doesn't mean that I feel like his family should get something that is meant for like our patriots.
Yeah, I completely understand, and I'm glad you said that. I think we can all agree here that George Floyd wasn't supposed to die. That was an act of police brutality, may have been an act of racism, and I think we all say he didn't deserve to die. He maybe deserved to be arrested. I'm not sure. I don't know the total, uh, you know, surroundings of it, but and everybody agrees here, right? Okay, everybody shook their head just so you guys listeners know. Um, but I don't think he was an angel by any means. But going back to your point, he should not have even like they should not have given a thought. I think it's more of a political move to try and get the black vote by Nancy Pelosi, and also the Democrats kind of want to try and take a corner on the market of minority voting. I mean, all like so like I think it's 75% of all minorities vote Democrat, and like 15 other percent don't vote either way. They vote like third party or something. Um, and so I think that's more of a political move, but it should absolutely be. It's disgraceful to this country that the leader of the Senate is, or sorry, the House of Representatives, the leader of the House of Representatives is doing this kind of bull crap just for political posturing. I think it's disgraceful.
I mean, like I understand where she's coming from, because everything nowadays is all politics. Like there's nothing in like anything in like social media or the world basically that's not about politics and just trying to politically gain over your opponent.
I don't mean to get off the political track, but in the video of George Floyd's death, I don't even know what the officer's name is. I really don't care. The dude deserves to die in hell. Anyways, I'm going to fall back on training. So I know a little bit of tactical defense, and in jiu-jitsu, these people, when I trained, there was a bunch of police officers there because they weren't getting the training by their police forces. So they went out on their own dime and paid for their own training. So they understand how to use their abilities to take people down without using lethal intent and harming themselves. And in the video, the officer put his shin bone and his knee on George Floyd's neck. And if you know anything about jiu-jitsu at all, the amount of pressure from that is, because if you put, like in training, it's knee on belly, and if you put your knee on someone's stomach, it hurts like hell. And that's just in training. So like in competition, it's knee on chest. And if you do that, you can stop someone from breathing. And I think I just think it's on the police force too for not training their police officers, because that dude either knew the amount of pressure he was applying on that guy, or it was a lack of training and he didn't necessarily know. But I think that more training in that field would be more beneficial in the end than defunding the police.
I do gotta get something off my chest. I saw this on Twitter the other day. Somebody I follow on Twitter liked it, and it's a graph of the most fatal shootings in the U.S. since January 1st, 2015. The statistics are from the Washington Post, put into a graph. So I understand, like I believe that these statistics are accurate, but I think the conclusion you are led to is misleading, because so what it shows, black people make up 13% of the U.S. population. They have 43% of their deaths, or 43% of all fatal police shootings in the U.S. since January 1st, 2015 were of black people. To 33% of 33% were Hispanic, whereas they make 12% of the racial makeup of the U.S. Whites make up 60% of the U.S. makeup, but they only had 17% of the fatal police shootings. And then others 15% make up, and then 6% of the shootings. I think that's misleading because it doesn't tell you, although the black people make up 13% of the United States population, they commit around 50% of total crime. That's what FBI crime statistics say, and I think the Hispanic rate's a little bit lower, but it's around 30%. And I'm not saying it's because they're race. I think mainly it is the culture. I think it's the culture, because from a young age in these minority neighborhoods, you are brought up to, F12. That's what you see on everything. You see F12. Don't trust the cops. Snitches get stitches. They don't want to be they're still caught up in the mindset that every cop is out there to get them, which I'm not saying there aren't racist cops out there, but I think it prevents us from getting to a place where we can have cops who can actually be in harmony with communities like minority communities. And Marco, I'm going to let you talk after this. I can tell you're already winding it up for me. But I think the problem is the culture that is fostered by people who are saying, oh, like whenever a black person becomes a cop, there's a lot, like every single time I see this on Twitter, they're like, a black person becomes a cop. They're calling him an Uncle Tom. They're calling him, everything, house N-word, They're calling him stuff that, saying he's a race traitor, basically. And I think that's where you can't get harmony, because some of these people won't trust police no matter how good you do. You could do the best thing for them. You could go pick up their groceries, give them a bike, and they wouldn't trust them because that's how they've been raised.
Do you think that we're raised the same way towards minorities? Like, I know some white people, their parents say they can't marry other races. And they tell them the reasons. I mean, I don't know the reasons because I have nothing against any other minorities, but I think it's both ways. Where we're taught to look at other people different, the same way. So as long as we're gonna look at them different, they're gonna look at us different. It's like a marriage. It's both fault. It's the both sides. Everybody has a blame in this. The thing is, I think we have to um realize what's the actual problems, and we gotta fix them. For example, I think we have to stop the gang violence if we want that to go down, and we also have to stop the racism because it does exist. It's not something that's out. I mean, it's something real. Like like I said, it's all about perspective. I mean, we can't really say about what people think and do assumptions about what people are doing. Because the thing is, I think a lot of dads get scared that they're not going to be able to support their child. Because honestly, you're in this And also you're getting all this drug money, and I'm gonna tell you, you don't want to put your family in danger either. That's what we have to think. They're doing a thing that's not only endangers them, endangers all their family. So they're leaving their child because they're scared that they're not gonna be able to support them. And maybe their child is better off with them. We don't know. Honestly, we don't know. We don't know because there's a lot of childs that don't have a dad, but they have the motivation to prove themselves. So maybe it's a thing that it's not the parents, it's actually the income of what they get. I honestly can't say anything because I don't live in their spot, so I don't know what to say. I mean, it's not my place.
I think it is pretty empirical fact that growing up in a household with a mother and a father is much more helps the child much more. I think you can see that in basically every study you do between fatherlessness and or motherlessness and full families, as in mother and a father with for the child. Um, if the father doesn't stay, they're only going to get, welfare money, which isn't a much. But if the father stays and gets a job, they're almost certainly going to get more money. And then they'll also have a father figure in the home. So I don't really see. I think it's a bunch of selfishness that also affected every other community. It's affected every other minority community and the white community, as the white community has 37% fatherlessness, and divorce is rampant throughout the entire country. And I think the welfare system has led to that.
To fix all this stuff, it's gonna take time and effort, but
Oh yeah.
it's not an easy fix, and it's gonna take some time. It's not gonna happen overnight. But what do you guys think about this whole stupid coronavirus thing?
Well, did you see what Joe Rogan said on, I don't know if it was his latest podcast or on Twitter, but he said that, like, wearing masks is for bitches, and everybody is just having a field day and throwing hate comments at him now. And, I mean, they're not wrong. You want to be safe and not get the virus and stuff, but, like, it's basically, I don't want to say it's disappeared because it hasn't, because there's just already, like, starting to be a second wave, but, like, now, in Mead at least, nobody's, like, really wearing masks at all. And we still have, like, the plexiglass and stuff, and people are still, I don't know. We have some precautions, but, like, now nobody's really doing that stuff anymore. But yeah, that's what.
I agree with that. Like, I agree with his statement that masks are for bitches because I mean, like, where I go to college in Hayes, it's a town or it's a city about probably close to about 26,000 people. In the past, probably like a few weekends I've been up there, I have yet to see a single person wearing a mask, like at all. And I also see like I think that most people use masks as like a fashion statement, like they get the coolest mask they can buy. But in reality, are they even checking to see if it actually works, or is it just a piece of the cloth that covers their? Because I saw this video on Twitter about the difference between a hospital N95 compared to a street mask that someone can buy online for like $10. And so what they did was is they put, I think it was something with some dust on the outside of the mask for someone to blow on. So N95, the person wearing it blew on it, and the dust. And then when the person used the mask they bought online, where they didn't check to see if it's actually like legit, it just blew right through there. So I feel like masks are basically a waste of time if they're not even like regulated or if they're even tested to see if they actually work.
So my thoughts on masks, I don't necessarily agree with you because I think any facial covering would stop the flow because your breath flows like 10 feet just by normal.
You're just stopping, like,
Don't breathe on
you're
pictures.
mainly just trying to stop, like, the spitting on people. And that's pretty much going to stop it.
But here's my thing. I think because AMC theaters, I was reading the headlines today. AMC theaters got such big backlash because they weren't requiring everybody in the movie theater to wear a mask. And I thought that's stupid. If you don't want to go to the movie theater, If you want to wear a mask and you don't want to be around people who don't wear masks, don't go to the movie theater. You got Netflix, you got Hulu, you got everything at home. You don't have to go to the movie theater. There are very viable options nowadays to where you don't have to go to the movie theater. And also, they're their own company. They can do whatever they want. If a company asks me to go to if they force me to wear a mask going inside, I can choose. Do I want to go inside? Do I not? I probably wouldn't, because I could probably get it someplace else where I wouldn't have to wear a mask. And honestly, for me, I don't like people telling me what to do.
I mean, you can't tell them that.
So if you want a mask, sorry,
What?
sorry, what, Caleb?
I was just saying you can't tell them that because they want to see the newest movie. Like, why can't I go see the newest movie? But like, they don't want to wear the mask, or they don't want to be around people that aren't wearing it. So like,
This is an easy fix. I mean, why don't you have a theater where people who wear masks and another theater where people who don't want to wear masks?
That's a great idea.
problem solved.
The thing is, I don't think if you want to wear a mask, I don't think it's you being a bitch. I think whoever wants to wear a mask has the ability, and they can choose to wear a mask or not. If you don't want to wear a mask, that's your choice. But the thing is, if they believe that it keeps them safe, maybe it does. We honestly don't know what keeps us safe during this virus. We've heard a lot of things that aren't true. We don't know what's true, honestly. We can't trust anybody because they've said that masks work, and now they say they don't. So what actually works? Does it? We don't know. So if you wear a mask, I think it's just a precaution thing. You know, you don't want to get it, so you're still gonna wear it. So I'm not sure. Go ahead.
It's actually really funny and super scandalous, because the actual Attorney General of the United States said, whenever this started in February, he said, don't buy masks. He tweeted out, don't buy masks in all cap. He said, they do nothing to stop the prevent. And then 3 weeks later, the whole thing was buy a mask, buy a mask. You got to have a mask. You got to go inside and you got to wear your own mask. And then the Attorney General still has the tweet up. Didn't even delete it. It's just, I think that should be more of a scandal, honestly. It's the government said they were doing it just because they didn't want to worry about it for first responder. But it's like, so what else is the government keeping for us for our own good, for the good of first responders?
Really?
But also, sorry, I think that should have been our policy throughout this whole coronavirus thing. Like you said with the mask, if you don't want to wear it, that's fine. If you want, I think we should have yeah, if you want to stay inside, that's fine. I don't think we should support you with our tax dollars. But if you want to stay inside and be scared, that's fine with me. I don't care. I'm not judging you. I kind of am judging you, to be honest. But we should let people who want to work, who want to keep the economy going, and who want to be outside and not be pussies, be outside.
I think it depends on the people's health. You know, we can't just say people who are 80 years old to go outside and then plop old Granny John just dies just because we told him to go outside. I think it just depends on the people's health, and if they think they're healthy enough to go outside, again, like you said, go outside. Another thing, the coronavirus can be used in so many ways to get days off of work to people that are working. They could say that they have coronavirus, and they will give them days off, and they'll be paid, and they won't get days off taken like they have vacation days, but they'll still be like where my dad works. They have people that they still get paid when they get tested. Since the day they get tested, they can't go to work until they know they're either good or if they're bad. The thing is, anybody can say they're getting tested. Anybody can go get tested, so you can get a week off of work for free. It's a easy way to finesse the system.
Yeah, I got laid off, so that's all I'm gonna say.
I think an easy way to get around that is just have the doctor fax over a note or write a letter with their signature on it saying that they tested positive for it, or call them, I think that's an easy way to get around.
Nobody has a mind of their own nowadays. Like, everyone looks to some sort of media, whether it's like CNN, Fox News, or Twitter. Like, those are the three platforms. So it's so hard for people to like think for themselves and figure out like what's best for them or what they want to do. I don't know. It's all stupid in my opinion, but what do I know?
I think we listen to I think we listen to people too much instead of believing in ourselves and our own opinions. Because I feel like we believe in one thing, but we actually I think we're scared to share our opinions. which it looks like it shouldn't be because the social media has been going crazy about people sharing their opinions. But I think we're just brainwashed about the big politics.
I think that sorry. I think that people nowadays don't want to accept other people's opinions. I think that's one of our biggest problems as a society is that if you don't agree with someone, then they're an asshole and they're wrong. Even though in reality, you might be wrong and they're right. But people don't take the time anymore to actually fact check anything because they believe every single thing that they see online, on social media, on the news, and it's completely biased. And if they don't actually, like, no one puts in the effort to go out and actually research facts or answers at all.
I just don't see why people can't just like have their own opinion and like just agree to disagree if you have to, but like just let people think what they want. And I don't know, everything is just stupid. Everything about social media and hating on other people because they don't agree with you. Like, just let them think what they want to think. Like, it's not your fucking life. Just leave them alone. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that in America we're so spoiled because we have no problems that are actually happening like Arabia and all that. I mean, I don't know what's happening in Arabia, but I think we're spoiled. I think we're just we have no problems to really complain about. I mean, we do. Racism is a thing. We complain about that, but like other problems, we have this so much freedom and so much. I think it's that we have nothing to fall back on. It's we have nothing that we experienced that was terrible. So I mean, yeah, 9/11, but I was like 1 or 2, so I just see them in the history books. But our parents went through a lot of things that were just terrible during their times. But I believe that other countries are a lot more quieter because they have actual problems, and we get mad because a freaking movie wasn't great. Who cares? How about you help a kid in Africa? Let's do that for a change. Let's help other countries instead of cry about our own thing.
I agree with that. I think we are spoiled in the fact that, or in the sense that we haven't experienced what other people experience because we've been blessed with our freedoms and thank God for all the people that go out and actually protect our freedoms. But if we didn't have any of our amendments or anything like that, and even now, I think that people abuse the hell out of those because people have always been attacking firearms. They've always been because, like, I think what is it, the First Amendment that says people are allowed to assemble in a peaceful way, and that's perfectly fine with me. I don't care. I support protest. I think it's a great thing. I think there should be reform and change within that community. But I think that going back to like what you said about how we're all spoiled, I don't think that. Well, what I'm trying to is we haven't even faced any sort of adversity that like another person's faced in any other country across the world.
Honestly, every single day, especially during this pandemic, I'm reminded of the quote that goes, "Hard times create strong men create peaceful times create weak men, and weak men create hard times," and then the cycle begins again. And to your point earlier about letting people agree to disagree, I understand where you're coming from, but I think right now in America, between the two political parties, like one is pro-abortion, pro-illegal immigration, and so the Democratic platforms are very extreme, and the right platforms are what they call extreme right.
I just want to say, like, I didn't mean like necessarily agree to disagree, like, well, in social media, like just fighting back and forth on social media. Like, I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, as a country, we shouldn't be like extremely divided like we are. Like, it's just totally against one side. But I just wanted to point out that like I just meant like people fighting on Twitter, like having beef, not like our whole country being divided. But what are your guys' thoughts on like the whole Seattle deal?
What's going on there?
You haven't?
I haven't. Okay, I haven't watched the news at all because it's toxic as hell.
Cooper, you can go.
So a bunch of Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters decided they cordoned off like 4 blocks. Just search it on the internet right now.
It's 9 blocks, isn't it? It's
9
9
blocks.
blocks.
It must have
No,
expanded
it's
since I landed.
9. Yeah.
Anyway,
That's as far as I
it's
know.
in the middle of Seattle. It's called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, and within 24 hours of them cordoning this off, they cordoned it off with barricades from the city work. And they said, "Oh, we're our own country now." Within 24 hours, they already had a warlord that was using his weapons to take advantage of people, especially women, in sexual ways. They tried to farm, and if you ever want to laugh, just search Chaz Farm on the internet, and it will be a picture of like tarp on top of like a picnic grass, and it'll have flowers, and it will never grow anything. They're trying to grow lettuce, which gives you no calories, so it couldn't feed you. And so basically, but I think the big story here is Seattle is idiotic for letting this go down, because they just look like a bunch of
Yeah,
wimps.
it's like completely like some Tom Clancy's Division 2 type shit. We're living it out in the future now, or in the present, I guess. Marco, you had some input.
I have a question, Cooper. I have a question. So, since David Koresh was a great Christian, do you think that he's a face of the religion? Do you think that he is he should be looked at as a great Christian, like you said that Antifa was Black Lives Matter because they put their
He
fist
said
up?
that was not me.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So do you think David Koresh, since he talked about Jesus in the books of all that, do you think he should be counted do you think he's supporting Christian? Do you think like he's a face of a Christian then?
Marco, the articles I read said that Black Lives Matter protesters. It didn't say, it said Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters. So that's where I got my information from. Maybe it was faulty information, but I don't have a problem with believing, considering Black Lives Matter protests were also the source looting
Koresh.
what?
Religion was the sources for David Koresh. So do you think Jesus is a fault for David Koresh's
No, because
actions?
almost everything in the Bible goes against what David Koresh did.
I'm just saying that just because they have Black Lives Matter doesn't mean they're representing. It doesn't mean that Black Lives Matter wants them to
I
represent.
wasn't saying they represent the entirety, the whole of Black Lives Matter. I was saying that some Black Lives Matter protesters were a part of it. I don't think the people who did Antifa represent the whole of it. I think that because Antifa's done that ever since they started. I'm not saying that these Black Lives Matter protesters are representing the entirety of it. I know they're not, because I don't. I think people have their own opinions, have their own actions, and don't represent an entire movement. Because I have the I don't know, logical input to decide between them.
I just want to say that Waco, good show. Don't agree with anything that David Koresh did because he's basically like a false prophet in my opinion. But I thought it was a pretty good show.
I mean, he screwed everybody's girlfriends, which is kind of
Yeah,
weird.
I don't agree. That in itself is
He
not
used his-
what the Bible says.
I mean, he was like Jeffrey Epstein on steroids.
Yeah, he used his he used his power to
Yeah.
get laid.
I think we're ready to move on to a new subject. I mean, that was a pretty short one. I think we all kind of disagree with it. But what do you guys think? You guys know what Juneteenth is, right?
Yeah.
I
I
Okay.
feel like 80%.
Hey, wait. Sorry. Let me just get my opinion out there, and I'll ask you what you guys' opinions are. I think that Juneteenth should be a national holiday, and I think it should be treated as Labor Day or other day off days, or 3-day weekend day. And so I mean, that's just my opinion, because I do believe that Juneteenth is kind of. I think the founding fathers, when they founded the Constitution, wrote the Constitution, I think they had the perfect idea. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice for all, and everybody has the right to privacy, or the right to happiness, the right to pursue happiness. And I think that wasn't fully completed until the slaves were free and given permission to vote.
This is just me. I'm not spitting any factual information or anything. This is just what I think. But I feel like I don't even want to give a number because I feel like people aren't going to like that. But to me, like, 80% of the people that are like posting and talking about Juneteenth like had no idea any of the background knowledge or like anything about it until like someone tweeted it, and then they're just like, oh yeah, Juneteenth. Like no one even knew it existed or like had any previous knowledge about it, and then they think like they know everything just because they posted about it once.
I agree with you, Caleb. But I think the same could be said for Veterans Day and Memorial Day. You know, I think a lot of people are out there just to get street cred, just to say, yeah, I posted something on Juneteenth. I stand with the black community. I posted something on Memorial Day. I stand for our soldiers, you know. And I think that's going to happen with every holiday. I don't think that's a reason to not make it a holiday. And I at first I was kind of catchy because I was just you know, we have Black History Month, and personally, I'm not a big fan of History Months, just in general. Like, I'm not a big fan of Pride Month or whatever that crap is called.
That's your opinion. I respect it.
Yeah, that's my opinion. And I mean, I don't think people should respect my opinion. I think they should just respect that I have the right to say it. You know, you can disagree with me all you want, and I don't care.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I mean, holidays, it's a great holiday because it was a big step for America. I mean, it wasn't into like the slavery of free this. I mean, slavery. Yeah. Well, I think it's a great idea though, because yeah, it was a big step for America. It's something that does represent us. It's so we can't forget that happened.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying it's not like a big deal or anything. I'm just saying like I feel like people that are making like a big deal about it now like didn't really know about it before, and so like I don't know if they're just like doing it to get it out there or what, but I feel like it would help just to, I mean, yeah, that's basically what it's about. Yeah, gotta get them likes and retweets up, bro.
everything right now.
Yeah.
Just a second. I do see. I think if you make Juneteenth a holiday and we teach it in schools, I think that would be great for people to learn about it and then not just be posting it for clout. You know, to learn why we do it on this certain day. You know,
There's so much that like people don't learn in schools like about history. Like there's so much different stuff like even in the US that American students don't learn about.
I agree with Marco on this. I think it's all like for the people who don't understand what's going on and they say something just like I agree that he's saying it's just for clout. Like most people have a good intentions, but then I think that there's a percentage of people that just do this just to say that they've been a part of it, just to help themselves.
Did you guys watch the Jeffrey Epstein Netflix? Do you guys know about it?
Don't spoil it for me.
it's not a spoiler. It's a news story.
Did he,
I don't really watch many documentaries, so I haven't seen it, but I know about it.
well, did you guys hear about Chris D'Elia?
Yeah, I did. I'm not happy about it. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything other than I don't know anything about it because nobody really does. But for those of you that are listening that don't know what we're talking about, Chris D'Elia, a famous comedian and actor who was in the TV show You, was accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women. One of them was like a senior in high school and said that he sent her a DM on Instagram and did something with her photos. I'm not really too sure about all the details, but yeah, a lot. Like I think it was like 5 women said that he did something that had to do with sexual misconduct. So yeah, that's what we're talking about.
I've from the articles I've read, it seems conclusive, but that's just court of public opinion. You know, I haven't seen the evidence, and from me, just looking, if I just had to tell you yes or no, gun to my head, I would probably say he probably did it, but I don't know. I would hope he would go to trial. I would give him the benefit of the doubt on innocence if I was a judge, but I'm not a judge, so I can just kind of think. And if the trial comes out with evidence proving the contrary, then, or not proving the contrary, sorry, with reasonable doubt, I'm fine to dismiss him because I don't really have a personal beef with him or anything. I just want justice to be done.
How do you go about investigating something like that? Because it happened years ago. Well, I think years ago. I don't know for sure.
Well, because
Like, how would you look into that?
the thing that I hate about it is that like one girl said something once, so then everyone from way back has to start bringing shit up just to try and be like, oh yeah, I mean, like I get it from their perspective. Like now that one person said it, they feel like they can, I don't know, like they can speak their mind and like try and get justice and stuff. But still, I don't know.
I think on this situation, it's so touchy because a lot of in a lot of cases, a lot of people lie, which makes it hard for the girls that actually have problems, that actually got raped. It makes it really hard for them because all these people that lied, just you need a lot more proof than what you're supposed to need. And with the Crystalia thing, it could be photoshopped. Anything could be photoshopped. We have so much technology right now that we can make someone look into murder. That's just the thing.
It's such a difficult thing because like if you have those people that are lying about it, then that makes it so hard to actually like figure out if it actually happened or not. But it also sucks for the people like doing the case because they don't know what's accurate and what's not. But it also sucks for the girls that actually did have to go through that, if it actually happened or not. But then that's not giving the girls the justice that they deserve from the other girls lying about it.
That's why I believe if it's an accusation, it should go straight to court. Not straight to court. Sorry. There are accusations, but our justice system is set up to where if the accusations are very far fetched, he did it to me while we were on Mars, some bull crap like that. The judge can just throw it out. That's why our justice system it's set up to drop frivolous lawsuits, stuff like that.
Well, I was just gonna say that like. It sucks even if it did happen. I think he's a funny fucking guy. Like, I'm not going to stop watching his comedy just because of that. And I know some people are not going to like that, and they will never watch another Crystalia thing or anything or have anything to do with him unless it's just, like, hate messages. But I think he's funny as fuck, so I'm going to keep watching him. That's all I have to say about it.
I think we could say about celebrities the same thing we can say about cops. They have this power play. I mean, with money, you have so much power with you. So, I mean, you can tell anybody, they're not going to catch me because I could just pay them off. It's that easy. But, I mean, who knows? That's just what I wanted to say there.
Well, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. This is all good intellectual conversation and whatnot, but I've got shit to do tomorrow, so... you guys were listening to the Something About Everything podcast with Caleb, Blake, Marco, and Cooper. It's been fun. This was episode 1, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.